Okay guys, hey, so watching Eye of Apophis has got me thinking more about the timeline that is kind of canon in this case for Delphi. So the more I think about it, the more I have questions, and so I just want to come to you today and kind of just think out loud as far as presenting just the basic stuff that we know and then what it kind of doesn't really tell us. So anybody brand new to this case, just very basically, this is about two friends, Abby Williams, 13, and Libby German, 14, who went for an afternoon walk on a public trail on the outskirts of the small town of Delphi, Indiana on Monday the 13th of February, 2017. This was a day off from school, and it was unusually pleasant for mid-February in north central Indiana. So the following statements, gathered over many years from many sources, are the evidential components that help to develop the currently widely accepted timeline of events. So we should remember that law enforcement has yet to officially provide evidence as to the veracity of such statements. Nowhere that I can find, but I am happy to be proven wrong. There is no really official report that goes over the evidence clearing the family members. And so much of the timeline does come down to what the family members have said, have testified to, mostly through more unconventional means, but it's never really from law enforcement. So it's for this reason that I think that we do have to consider the timeline that we have right now that has been the standard go-to for the past 7 years. We may actually have to consider that it's unreliable. So, according to Libby's older sister, Kelsey German, Abby and Libby were dropped off nearby the trails between 1:30 and 1:50 p.m., and that was on Monday the 13th. So, according to Libby's grandmother, Becky Patty, Libby's father, Derek German, arrived to pick up both girls around 3:15 p.m. So he was said to have called Libby's phone several times, and after several unanswered calls, he proceeded to search for both the girls and walked some of the trails to do so. It was stated that he then called his mother, Becky Patty, who later reported calling her husband, Mike Patty, and her other granddaughter, Kelsey German. So, around 5:30, someone within or close to the Patty family informed local law enforcement that Libby and Abby were missing, and a search ensued. And that search was comprised of official and volunteer searchers. So, sometime between 11 p.m. and midnight, the volunteer search was suspended for liability and safety concerns of the rough terrain and poor visibility. At first light the following day, Tuesday the 14th of February, the search recommenced, but with organized groups surveying designated grids. Around 12:15 p.m., the bodies of Abby and Libby were officially located by law enforcement. They had been murdered not far from their last known location, the old railroad Monon High Bridge, as later digital forensics would uncover several photographs posted to Snapchat taken from the southeast end of the bridge. Further forensics would uncover a 43-second video taken from Libby's phone, capturing a man walking toward the two girls and at some point ordering them, quote-unquote, down the hill. This timeline has been presented as canon in this case. Its indoctrinated nature has only true legitimacy by those who've attempted to cobble together what unverified truths, intentional or unintentional, they could through the years. So, admittedly, the timeline has been allowed to become what it now is due to the opaque nature of the investigation. The public has gone digging for answers, trying to fill a vacuum never fully explored, which is the timeline as presented pretty much singularly by Libby's family. So, this is not to say that Libby's family had anything to do with her murder, or Abby's, but cell phone records should have been checked to establish when and where the girls were in fact dropped off. Assuming Libby and her sister both had cell phones, both cell tower and geofencing data should have been retrieved to know exactly when the girls were dropped off and where. Further, Libby's father should have had his cell phone looked at in the same manner, and all individuals of Libby's family who came out to search for Libby and Abby before calling the police should have had their digital information scrutinized similarly. All family members should have remained isolated and interrogated one-on-one in the days following the girls' murders. So it's also entirely possible that all cellular and digital data was thoroughly analyzed, but without law enforcement revealing how they investigated the families of both girls, the public does not truly know if and how the families were vetted. And this is super unfortunate because had the families been fully vetted and likewise cleared, they would have a greater shield to denounce those who ask questions. So, to this day, there have been no true receipts, physical, digital, non-familial, witness testimony, etc., provided by law enforcement or by Libby's family to reasonably believe the existing timeline. The timeline is a composite assortment of statements made predominantly by Libby's family, who, as far as we know, have not been definitively vetted by law enforcement. And these statements additionally have been released to the public at large, either through podcasts, YouTube, television interviews, or in-person testimonies at popular true crime conventions or daytime talk shows. I'm happy to be wrong and reissue an updated video if there exists an actual police report officially ruling out any, but preferably all, family members with evidence, such as cell tower and or geofencing data, CCTV footage of vehicles and alternate locations, which logistically would be impossible to be implicated due to distance and time. So, otherwise, like business or residential security camera footage along nearby or far away routes, in-store camera footage, physical shopping receipts, etc. Likewise, if the state in fact has proof that their accused murderer, Richard Allen, was in fact at the trails during the day the girls went missing, I would be very interested. If digital proof exists, I question the motive for withholding that data from their probable cause affidavit, instead choosing to entrust the legitimacy of their arrest to the singular, buried, and unspent cartridge recovered from between the bodies of Abby and Libby. However, without knowing exactly when the girls go missing, I am hesitant to even begin theorizing a timeline, much less the accuracy of the current timeline. So, if the events occurred, as has been pieced together from statements made predominantly by Libby's family, much of a timeline could be properly laid out, especially with cell tower and geofencing data, which would supply much needed precise times and locations of the people involved. So, I just question if there really is stuff to show that the family members were in fact where they were, the times that they were there, when they say they were, then I do feel like a lot of that could be put to bed, and we could then be confident in working off of that timeline. But people such as Eye of Apophis have done a good enough job of raising legitimate questions. And that could just be the police report of, yes, like, at this time, in this location, we did ping or find the data for, the family members' phones, and they were far enough away, or they were exactly where they said they were, and or etc. Because if Abby's mom hadn't seen her since the day before, there's actually a larger time period in which we don't have eyes other than the family's eyes on either Libby or Abby. So, that's all. Just wanted to do a really quick video and see what you guys think. So, I'm not here to die on this hill, but I do have questions. Okay, thanks guys. Have a good day.